The news broke quietly, but it hit like thunder. Diane Keaton, Hollywood's most beloved eccentric, the woman with the hats, the laughter, and the heart, was gone. Across the world, fans remembered her as the quirky charm of Annie Hall, the graceful soul of Something's Gotta Give, the woman who could make Heartbreak look poetic. But for one man, the loss was unbearable: Woody Allen. For decades, their names had been tied together in whispers of what could have been. They never married, never declared love publicly, yet everyone felt the invisible bond between them. When Diane died, Woody didn't speak for days. His longtime friend said he just stared out the window for hours, like he was watching his own memories fade away. Hollywood mourned with tributes and montages, but everyone wondered, what would Woody say? It wasn't just about grief, it was about history, because Diane Keaton wasn't just another actress in his films. She was his muse, his best friend, his mirror. And as the world replayed clips of Annie Hall, her smile, her laugh, her voice calling la-di-da, everyone knew those moments weren't just acting. They were pieces of something real. What nobody knew was that Woody Allen was finally ready to tell the truth about their love, their pain, and the secret that lasted a lifetime. For nearly a week, he said nothing. Then one morning, a short statement appeared on his official website. "Diane," he wrote, "was the greatest person I ever knew. Not actress, not muse, person." Those words stopped the internet. Woody Allen, usually distant, analytical, often cold, had written something raw, almost trembling. Reporters swarmed his Manhattan doorstep. Friends said they'd never seen him like this. His voice broke when he mentioned her name. He didn't grant interviews, but eventually a close confidant convinced him to sit down for a private recording. That recording, yet never meant to be public, became one of the most emotional confessions of his life. In it, Woody said, "I never loved anyone the way I loved Diane. Not romantically, maybe not even consciously, but she was everything." Fans who heard snippets of it online felt chills, because it confirmed what everyone suspected for years, that behind every witty line, every scene, every laugh they shared on screen, there was real love. And now, with Diane gone, he couldn't hide it anymore. Woody spoke about her laugh that echoed across film sets, her strange way of eating toast with peanut butter before every scene, how she'd send him long letters filled with humor and philosophy just to make him smile. "She was my North Star," he said softly, and with that the silence was over. Before the fame, before the awards, before Annie Hall, there was just a small stage in New York. It was the late 1960s. Woody Allen was already a rising comic, neurotic, witty, unpredictable. Diane Keaton was a young actress with big dreams and a nervous laugh that seemed to charm everyone. They met during the Broadway run of Play It Again, Sam. She wasn't even supposed to get the part, but the moment Woody saw her audition, he knew. There was something about her, he later said. She was nervous, but fearless, unpolished, but perfect. On stage, their chemistry was instant. Off stage, it was awkward, tender, and filled with laughter. They'd go for long walks in Central Park after rehearsals. Diane would talk endlessly about photography and love, while Woody would listen, hiding smiles behind his glasses. Soon, they were inseparable. Not quite lovers, not quite friends, something in between. When the play turned into a film, Woody insisted on casting her. It was the beginning of one of cinema's greatest partnerships. Years later, Diane would joke, "He taught me how to be funny, I taught him how to wear beige." But what they didn't say out loud, even to each other, it was that their connection went far deeper than art. It was the start of a love story that would never fully be written, yet would never truly end. When Annie Hall premiered in 1977, audiences thought it was a masterpiece, funny, touching, modern. But those who really knew Woody and Diane saw something else. It wasn't a script, it was their life. The awkward dates, the small fights, the way she'd hum songs out of nowhere, all of it came from their real story. Woody admitted years later, "Annie Hall was me trying to make sense of Diane." The clothes she wore in the film, those were her own. The hats, the vests, the ties, all pure Diane. The movie wasn't just about love, it was about loss, about watching something beautiful, fade, and not knowing how to stop it. Critics called it the most honest romantic comedy ever made, but for Woody, it was therapy. When the film won the Oscar for Best Picture, he didn't even show up. Diane did. She stood on that stage, radiant and humble, thanking everyone, including Woody. In that moment, the camera caught her eyes shining, and some swore she whispered, "Thank you, Alvy." Years later, fans still wonder, did Annie Hall reveal everything, or did it hide something deeper? Maybe both. Because behind the laughter, there was a truth that neither could say out loud, that they loved each other, but in the wrong way and at the wrong time. Everyone always asked them the same question, "Why didn't you two ever get married?" They'd laugh it off. "Because then we'd ruin everything," Diane once said. But the truth ran deeper. Woody was a man who lived in his mind. He found safety in logic, not emotion. Diane, on the other hand, lived completely in her heart. She was wild, unpredictable, full of feeling. They loved each other but couldn't fit into each other's worlds. In one interview, Woody admitted, "I wasn't built for normal love. Diane was too alive for my neuroses." Still, he couldn't let her go. They continued working together, calling, writing, laughing, even as they both dated other people. When Diane started seeing Al Pacino, Woody pretended not to care, but his friends said he looked crushed. He once told a colleague, "I'd rather have her as my friend forever than lose her trying to make her mine." And maybe that's why their story lasted longer than most marriages, because it was built on something purer than possession. It was built on connection, respect, and a shared language only they understood. In a world obsessed with labels, Woody and Diane were proof that love doesn't need one. After Diane's death, her family found a box in her Los Angeles home. Inside were hundreds of handwritten letters, all from Woody. They dated back to the 1970s. Some were short, filled with jokes and doodles. Others were long confessions about life, art, and loneliness. In one letter, Woody wrote, "I saw a woman today in a cafe who reminded me of you. Then I realized no one actually does." Those letters painted a different picture of Woody Allen, not the aloof filmmaker, but a man quietly holding on to someone who understood him completely. Diane kept every letter. Some were even tied with ribbons. When her family shared a few excerpts after her passing, fans were stunned. Woody had never written anything like that publicly. His humor was still there, but beneath it you could feel a longing that never faded. He later said, "She was the only person I could write to and not edit myself." The letters revealed what the world always suspected, that Woody Allen's greatest love story didn't exist in his films. It existed in his mailbox. They went separate ways, but somehow they never really parted. Diane would show up on Woody's sets just to say hi. He'd send her scripts, not because he needed her, but because he wanted her opinion. Their bond wasn't romantic anymore. It was something rarer. When Woody faced public controversy in the 1990s, Diane stood by him. She didn't defend everything he did, but she never abandoned him either. "He was my friend before the fame, before the madness," she once said. "That's who I remember." They'd still call each other on birthdays. He'd ask about her photography. She'd tease him for still wearing the same glasses. Once, when Diane won a Lifetime Achievement Award, she mentioned Woody in her speech. "You made me believe I could be funny," she said, "and that's no small gift." For two people who couldn't stay together, they somehow never drifted apart. It was as if time kept pulling them back to the same place, two artists who understood each other better than anyone else ever could. In what would become her final interview, Diane Keaton was asked about Woody Allen. She smiled, that same mischievous grin she'd had for decades, and said, "Woody, he's still the funniest man alive, but he's also the saddest." The interviewer asked if she regretted not marrying him. Diane paused. For a moment her eyes softened. "No," she said quietly, "because we were exactly what we were meant to be, and that's more than most people ever find." Those words hit differently after her death. Fans replayed that clip endlessly online. Her voice, her calm acceptance. It felt like a farewell. She talked about how Annie Hall still haunted her. "Every time I see that movie," she said, "I see who we were and who we'll always be." Woody later revealed that after that interview she sent him a short note. It read, "Don't ever change, even if the world does." He kept that note on his piano. After she passed, when he mentioned it, his voice trembled. "She knew me too well," he whispered, "better than anyone ever did." That interview was more than just a memory. It was her final goodbye wrapped in humor, wisdom, and grace. And for Woody, it was the last time he heard her voice, alive, real, and full of that spark that had captivated him since the day they met. Behind every Woody Allen classic was a trace of Diane Keaton. From Manhattan to Interiors, her influence was everywhere, not just as an actress, but as an idea. Woody once said, "Every female character I ever wrote after Diane had a little bit of her in it." Even when other actresses played the roles, you could sense it. The wit, the independence, the awkward elegance. That was Diane. On set, she wasn't just performing. She challenged him. If a line didn't sound true, she'd say, "Woody, no woman would say that," and he'd rewrite it. Their creative push and pull made the movies timeless. Cinematographers recalled them as that she had an instinct for light and emotion. She'd tell Woody, "This scene should feel lonely, not dark," and somehow it always worked, one crew member said. Over time, even when she wasn't in his films, her shadow lingered, in the rhythm, the tone, the fragile humor. Woody admitted once, "She made me human on screen. Before Diane, I wrote jokes. After her, I wrote feelings." It's no wonder that when she died, he said, "She didn't just act in my films, she wrote them with her presence." Behind the camera, Diane Keaton wasn't just a muse. She was the heartbeat of Woody Allen's art. In 2018, there were quiet talks about one final collaboration, a film that would reunite Woody Allen and Diane Keaton one last time. The story, reportedly, was about two aging artists looking back on their lives and realizing they'd misunderstood love all along. It sounded like them. They met twice to discuss it. Woody had written a draft, and Diane loved it. "It's us," she told him, "only older." But the timing wasn't right. Health issues, scheduling, and the whirlwind of controversies around Woody's name made the project impossible. Still, they stayed in touch. He'd occasionally call and say, "You know, Annie would have still worn the hat," and she'd laugh, replying, "And Alvy would still be overthinking everything." It was clear they both wanted that one last film, not for fame, not for money, but for closure. When she passed, Woody mentioned it briefly. "We almost made another movie. I guess now we'll just have to imagine how it ends." Fans couldn't help but think, maybe the movie didn't need to exist. Maybe their entire lives had already been the film, and maybe its ending was never meant to be written, only felt. Through the years, Hollywood had seen many great on-screen couples, Hepburn and Tracy, Bogart and Bacall, Newman and Woodward, but Woody and Diane were something else. They didn't play passion, they played reality. They showed awkwardness, silence, laughter that broke tension, the kind of love people actually lived, not just dreamed about. Directors admired their chemistry. "You can't fake that kind of connection," Martin Scorsese once said. Even decades after Annie Hall, young filmmakers studied their performances. Every glance, every hesitation, every unspoken moment. Together they changed romantic cinema. They made honesty beautiful. Off-screen, they remained a mystery, never giving tabloids much to chew on. Their friendship became a kind of legend in itself. Woody once joked, "People keep asking if I ever loved Diane. I say if I didn't, then I've been confused for 50 years. Diane, in turn, called him her eternal creative partner. In a world that burns through connections fast, theirs endured. Through time, fame, and loss, they stayed each other's constant. Hollywood has crowned many stars, but few ever created something so human. Two souls who taught the world that love can outlast romance. In his private recording, Woody Allen confessed something he'd never said before. "I never told her how much she saved me," he admitted. During the early 1970s, he was at his lowest, anxious, uncertain, questioning his career. Diane was the one who pushed him to take risks. She told him he was more than a comedian. "She believed in me before I believed in myself," he said. But what haunted him most was what he didn't say. "I should have told her she was the love of my life," he whispered, "but I thought it would scare her away." He paused for a long moment in that recording. You could hear his breath shake. Woody rarely spoke about emotion, but in that moment all of it poured out. He admitted that every woman he ever wrote after her, every witty, fragile, complex character, was his way of talking to Diane. It was his apology, his confession, his love letter written in film. And now, with her gone, there was no one left to read it.